Hi, my name is Burst, and I am coach of your Champagne Shells, and it is finally time to start Season 6 of the Great Lakes Draft League. We're in the Basket Legion Division, and we're going to start off this season with a bang. We have a match against Otto, and let me tell you, this is going to be a match. It's going to be very difficult. Otto is a very, very strong team. So let's just get right into it. Let's break down exactly what we're up against and see what we're going to have to do to respond.
Now, looking at these two teams here, there's a lot of very interesting dynamics going on between the both of them. First off, we see they have very similar speed tiers to one another. However, the opponent's team, Otto, has a lot higher tiers in those high speed tiers, whereas our speed tiers are much more in the middle range for our main contributing Pokemon. When we look at our opponent Otto's team, there's about 5 or 6 that we can look at to be our notable Pokemon of the matchup. First is obviously Rillaboom. Rillaboom is a very strong, bulky pivot Pokemon. It doesn't often invest in speed, however it does invest very heavily in its health pool and into its attack power. That allows it to be very strong in the right conditions, and against my team, there's a few Pokemon that can be very strong in this matchup. For example, against our Gastrodon, and against our Hisuian Arcanine, or maybe even against our Raging Bolt if we decide to terrestrialize it. Next is the Heatran. The Heatran provides very good special pressure against us. It deals with our sand mode quite nicely, and it deals with the Hisuian Arcanine very well as well, which were two of the main things that we would use into the Rillaboom. Next is the Latios. Latios is very fast. It provides tailwind support for their team, which would be very helpful into a lot of our Pokemon. And it provides a very strong Draco Meteor into the Raging Bolt, which we would not be fast enough to respond to. Next is the Sneasler. Sneasler has the ability Unburden, allowing it to become a lot faster under grassy terrain if it were to use the Grassy Seed item, which would allow it to have a very strong matchup into Hisuian Arcanine. However, our Blizzard Spam mode is very good at nullifying a lot of its offensive power, and the priority and the redirection of Sinistra and Raging Bolt both make this Pokemon relatively obsolete if we were to position around it correctly. Next is the Electabuzz. With Follow Me on this Pokemon, it's very, very useful for its team in order to nullify the effects of our Raging Bolt unless we were to want to use Dragon moves against it. It also means that we're going to have to deal with it first before we take out any of the other stronger Pokemon. Last is the Blastoise. Blastoise provides very strong water attacks into our Hisuian Arcanine, which would be a main source of damage for us going into this matchup. Next, we're going to be looking at what we're going to bring into the matchup and how we're going to plan to deal with all of these threats.
So into this matchup against Otto, we have built a team of mainly 6 very strong pieces, plus 1 that you may not expect. First, we have our Snow mode, consisting of Ninetales Alola with Light Clay, Aurora Veil, Helping Hand, Encore Blizzard, and Terra Fire, and Articuno with Life Orb, Snow Cloak, with Blizzard, Freeze Dry, Terra Blast, and Tailwind. Now, the big thing about Terra Blast with Terra Ground for Articuno is that it provides a really great way for it to respond to Heatran, which is a really big problem for this team, obviously. So Terra Blast with Terra Ground is going to be our really nice nuke button for the Articuno. Then we have Arcanine with Terra Ghost, that makes it immune to close combat from Sneasler. It's Choice Banded with Flare Blitz, Rock Slide, Head Smash, and Extreme Speed. Head Smash is meant to be a big damage dealing button. Rock Slide and Flare Blitz the same way, and Extreme Speed just gets the edge over an opponent in terms of speed order. We also have a Raging Bolt with leftovers, Calm Mind Protect, Dragon Pulse, Thunderclap, and Terra Fairy. The goal of this Raging Bolt is to be very bulky, is to sit on the field, set up a few Calm Minds, and generally to live a ton of hits. It's also benefited from Rillaboom's grassy terrain, as it'll allow it to restore 1/8 of its health per turn instead of 1/16, thanks to leftovers recovery as well. We also have, of course, Sinistcha on the team, which will allow it to recover 1/4 of its health on switching of Sinistcha. We also have Life Dew to do the same exact thing. Sinistcha is also Terra Fire for the same reasons as Ninetales, and mainly just to be resistant to a lot of things on the team. We have Shadow Ball, Trick Room, and Rage Powder on this as well. Shadow Ball is our main attacking move because I found that Machigacha just had a very bad matchup into this team, and Shadow Ball is able to hit a lot of things a little bit easier. Rage Powder is great redirection, and Trick Room is just in case they decide to set up a Trick Room mode, and I want to reverse it. Finally, we have Hitmonlee. The goal of Hitmonlee is to be a counter to Rillaboom in the case that there's like Rillaboom Heatran stuff going on. With Terra Psychic, it resists a ton of things that wants to hit into it. And with Close Combat, Feint, Fake Out, Protect, the main goal is to nuke the Heatran, get solid damage off with other close combat targets, and to totally disrupt the game plan of our opponent here. So that is our team. Our goal is to sit and spam. That's about it. We don't have too much else we want to do. And we'll see if the lack of complication will turn out to bite us. So let's just go into the match and see how it goes. Okay, so it looks like we have a team of Rillaboom, Sneasler, Latios, Heatran, Piloswine, and Mandibuzz. Piloswine and Mandibuzz are very interesting. We really didn't prep for those. However, I think that Piloswine won't prove to be a huge issue outside of Trick Room. Mandibuzz, however, may be an issue if it decides to go very stally with Snarl Spam and with maybe Toxic and Roost. It looks like we're going to rely very heavily on Ground Articuno from the looks of things. We already have a Arcanine Ninetales lead, which was a prepared lead to deal with whatever they decide to bring. Articuno seems to be here just to provide that constant Terrasilize, Terra Blast pressure. It looks like Raging Bolt is here because of No Follow Me Electabuzz, which provides a lot less pressure against the Thunderclaps. So it looks like we're going into the battle now, and we will see what's actually brought in. So Otto is breeding in Latios and Heatran, which means that Arcanine's gotta get the fuck out, right? It is not in a good spot. Latios can provide tail and pressure here. It's probably got a Covert Cloak, we're thinking. And that just means that Heatran has a perfect opportunity to launch a Flash Cannon into Ninetales, so they can launch Earth Power into Articuno. Not Articuno, into Arcanine. However, a switch into Articuno may be beneficial. So it looks like that's what we're hovering here. And switch into Articuno, it is. And Heatran just protects, which is great. A lot less pressure onto us. And a sunny day means that the Aurora Veil that I think we clicked actually just does not go off. So Heatran has a lot of offensive pressure now with the fire type moves it can be launching. So maybe just a raw Terra Blast would be the option. However, I'm not sure if you actually are. Is he doing it? It doesn't look like he's doing it. He's doing for a Tailwind instead. That's very interesting, and I'm not entirely sure if that's going to pay off. because the sheer amount of offensive pressure from this is just going to be too much, I think. You see Heatran is going into a Terra Ghost, definitely fearing the Terra Ground Terra Blast. So, but we obviously didn't go for the Terrestrialization, so we're still very weak to a Heat Wave and that comes out, and that's exactly what it does. Raging Bolt still takes a good chunk out of that. Articuno is just gone. And suddenly, it looks like a position is a lot less favorable for us. And honestly, it doesn't look like we have that many options anymore. Because if Arcanine switches in, then there's just an Earth Power with a Tailwind. If Ninetales switches in, the same thing. So, the question is, what do we have that can take a hit from Heatran? I don't think there's anything here. I don't think there's anything on this team that can actually take a hit. Ninetales chooses to come out, so maybe a Tailwind's in order from Latios, and maybe another Sunny Day's in order. We'll see. It looks like we're hovering Terra Fairy here to see if Latios will actually go for something. Oh, Terra Fairy Calm Mind. That's interesting. Now, Heatran here should have Flash Cannon, if we remember right. So, if Heatran decides to go for the Flash Cannon into Ninetales, that's pretty free. However, if there's like a double up into Raging Bolt trying to call the Terra and punish it, that's going to be a lot worse. Say Draco Meteor comes out into Raging Bolt, that just means the follow-up Flash Cannon goes into Ninetales, and that's a double KO. But the follow-up Flash Cannon just goes into Raging Bolt, takes it down. Ninetales is left alone. But what's it going to do? Is it going to Blizzard? How much is it actually going to do with that, you know? But we just go for an Encore anyway! So we see there's a Draco Meteor, but we don't actually know how much it's going to do, if it's going to kill the Arcanine or not. Either way, the lack of damage is really concerning, because we don't know if we're actually going to be able to snowball this back once we take down the Heatran. So it looks like just a head smash just to get it out, and then a Blizzard maybe? Or are we hovering Aurora Veil? Okay, so we go for the Blizzard, and our Draco Meteor does go out into Arcanine, and we do survive it. Meaning that, but the double up with the Earth Power doesn't even matter, right? So we'll see how much a Blizzard does, if it's going to be enough for us to snowball, or if we're just going to have to take the L on this match. Alright, that's definitely not enough. We're just going to get hit by a Flash Cannon. I think we're just going to have to go next, figure out what the Game 2 plan is. We do see a withdrawal of the Latios into the Python. Yeah, that's a lot of information for us. But the Flash Cannon just goes for the one hit. That's a brutal loss. I gotta deal with that with my Game 2. Very well said. It looks for Game 2 we're going for a Raging Bolt Sinister lead. Maybe the goal is to let Raging Bolt set up a few Calm Minds, and that way they can't get rid of the Aurora Veil, for example, with Weather. But instead, by just setting up a few Calm Minds, Raging Bolt will be able to tank whatever the special attackers will get, and physically, it already has a really great defensive synergies. So, maybe the goal is to have this very setup-oriented front, and then later come in with the Articuno and Ninetales and sweep everything up. So we see a Rillaboom and Mandibuzz lead, and that's really interesting because we don't actually see a Sneasler lead to apply a ton of offensive pressure. Instead, Mandibuzz is here, and definitely he's going to throw in some Snarl Spam, But I think the best option is just to start getting up Calm Minds. Now, Sinistra doesn't have the best matchup either due to the Dark and Flying type both being very special or very super effective into Sinistra. So it's just going to switch out into Ninetales and maybe it's going to pressure that Aurora into the coming turns.
He might go for a taunt, and that may be an issue, but big out, yeah.
So no taunt as we had just identified. Instead, going for that Snarl, and meaning that Ninetales offensively doesn't have nearly as much pressure. However, given it's more of a supportive set, it'll still be around for Aurora shenanigans.
Aurora seems very safe here. I don't think that can get worn off by anything.
That's absolutely right. So this does seem to be a very passive play. You're not really providing much pressure. However, into later turns, just the sheer amount of hits that these mons will have to take to actually provide some offense is insane. But we see Heatran come out instead, so that Rillaboom is really threatened by a Blizzard. And now Mandibuzz is tearing into Poison type. So I'm not entirely sure why the Poison type is useful. It's very defensively useful. So Calm Mind does come out, but this Mandibuzz is still a mystery to us. We just see a Toxic come out into the Raging Bolt. So it looks like 101% accuracy Toxics is the game plan there. Being able to bypass Snow Cloak, for example, and wear down this Calm Mind Raging Bolt. That will actually end up being an issue for us later on in the battle. But for now, it looks like all we can really do is slow this down. It looks like the game plan here is to encore the Mandibuzz and prevent it from actually doing any damage, for example with a Terra Blast. While just getting Calm Minds up, making sure that we don't get, of course, our special attack lowered by Snarl again. Toxic does come out into Ninetales, but I fear it doesn't even matter because Heatran's out anyway and is just going to go for a Flash Cannon to take it out. Which is actually going to be really useful for us in the grand scheme of things because of the way that we can start pivoting around the Articuno in the back. So Articuno does come in, and a Ground Terra Blast is going to significantly threaten both the Pokemon in the field and a Sneasler in the back, if that's exactly what we're seeing. So it looks like you're doing some kind of double up, maybe a Thunderclap. But either way, the Terra is going to come out, and as long as we don't see it protect from the Heatran, we should get the one shot onto it. Okay, so no protects, the Terra Blast will come out, and that is just a gone Heatran. The mon that completely ran over and stomped our team last game is completely nullified, and that's such a great thing. Unfortunately, our Articuno is toxic. We are not very bulky with it, but it does provide very consistent damage options from the Mandibuzz. And that's a lot of health off the Mandibuzz as well. Hopefully we can continue to pressure it into later attacks. We haven't seen anything except for Toxic and Snarl out of this Mandibuzz. So Sneasler is revealed to be the fourth Pokemon. It does have Grassy Seed, making it the fastest Pokemon on the field at the moment. Now, Sneasler does threaten to be very, very strong against our team. However, Mandibuzz is a lot more of a threat to us, and Sneasler being very frail, we can take out with the Pokemon we have in the back. Articuno is going to still be a very strong threat in our behalf. Mandibuzz is switched out, however, that means it's going into the Rillaboom for a resisted hit, that will not be doing too much damage. But the Sneasler goes for Protect. It's a very, very safe play from them. That does mean that Rillaboom has the Fake Out option for next turn. Sneasler, however, is still in a very weak spot against both the Raging Bolt and the Articuno. Perhaps this Sneasler doesn't want to stay in at all, but the switch into Mandibuzz is still very threatened by the Terragon Terrablast that we still want to be doing into the Sneasler. So maybe the Rillaboom will want to Fake Out into the Articuno and ensure that the Sneasler is preserved for later on. But we'll just have to see exactly what happens, because we're threatening major damage. But we're also worried about the Rillaboom going for something like, well, a Wood Hammer into the Articuno slot, and it's just not something we care to deal with. And we were hovering over the Sinisha, but what? The Sinisha is switching in for the Raging Bolt, I guess because it wants to reset the Toxic turns, and instead just going for a Terror Blast into the Sneasler.
I just want to reset that Toxic timer.
Yeah, that is the thought process here. And Articuno is getting some of that hospitality again, but it's just getting faked out, so no offensive pressure. The close combat does go out into the Sinisha. That is nice in terms of removing a lot of the damage pressure. So now the Sneasler does have Protect up again, and Rillaboom is not redirected by the Sinisha. That is a free Wood Hammer into the Articuno. If it is baited by the Sneasler, do we go for the Terra Blast into the Sneasler? Or do we reserve Articuno for the Mandibuzz later? And we go for it. Sneasler protects. What a fatal error from us. Now that Rillaboom has free reign to go for a Wood Hammer into the Articuno, and now we have nothing to actually deal with the Mandibuzz in the back. This is just so devastating of a mishap. And there it is. The Wood Hammer comes out, and our number one answer to the entire team is just gone. So obviously we have that Mandibuzz in the back, and you can just start Snarl Screaming down the rest of our team. And it just seems to be over from here. And that, coming from hindsight, yes, that is exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be Snarl Spam endgame. So let's just go over exactly what's going to happen, what our mistakes were, and then we'll let the rest of the game finish out. Now, obviously, Sinisha is great in theory in order to be a very great defensive switch for a lot of Pokemon. However, that Heat Wave going out from the Heatran, it didn't even matter that we were able to redirect everything because, well, because it was just going to go past it anyway, and it was still so super effective into the Sinisha in the first place. Now, it would have been really nice into both the Sneasler and into the Mandibuzz. However, in this game, we just didn't play it very correctly, and we didn't preserve our options. And of course, because we lost our we didn't bring the Hisuian Arcanine, we have no way anymore of taking out this Mandibuzz now that it's back on the field. And so we're just going to get Toxic Skull down. Game 1, obviously we didn't have a great game plan for the Latios plus Heatran lead, and that was a prep mistake on our end. So that will definitely have to get adjusted into the next week. So, for the end of this game, there's nothing else we can really do other than say that there's a few fatal mishaps that we had. There's a couple of turns where we let key pieces in our composition go, and because of that, we just had no way of coming back from the steamroll in game 1, and now this very slow end game in game 2 that we just have nothing to break through. So, Hopefully, going into week 2, we have a match against Wakeman. He has a lot more of an offensive team, not a very bulky team. It's got Ursaluna Farigarath, and he's got Masky Leech and Tornadus. So it's going to be a bit of an issue for us. So hopefully between better prep and some transactions week to week, maybe we can find a better footing into the following week. So that is it. Signing out from here. I'll let the rest of the battle play out if you'd like to see it. And that'll be it. Goodbye.